Hi, good evening. My name is, my username is Crockett36. I love Axis and Allies, and this is my first global second edition video. I'm going to do a series on the Allies. There's not as many of those as there are the Axis. I feel like that's a little bit of an intellectual laziness. I also think it's a little bit of a capitulation to say that the Allies are all reactionary. There's a couple strategies the Allies have, the Axis have, that we can plan on, and we can plan it out and plot it out. And so I'm going to try to do that a little bit. But I like starting small, and I'll see if you like what I have to say here. Let's take a look at the Chinese. If we zoom in on the Chinese here, a lot of times I hear these in these strategy recaps that the Chinese have gathered their forces in a place like Yunnan in order to defend the Burma Road, and the Japanese have an onslaught and they wipe out 8, 10, 12 Chinese people, and the fighter also dies. And I sit there and scratch my head and go, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. What you want to do with fighters, with fighter swarms, is you want to stay away from them. If you were thinking about this as far as hunting goes, in Asia, I'm hunting the Japanese infantry. That's the focus of my attention, the Japanese infantry, okay? The fighters can come into an area, swarm it, and attack, and there may be even more fighters than there are infantry. They withdraw, they land, and now the troop, hopefully, is you've got enough troops in the second level back, the adjacent zone, in order to recapture the territory and push the Japanese back and kill that small amount of infantry. This is particularly effective in the first 2 rounds, 3 rounds. Later, when they get more people on the land, you're going to have more difficult time. By turn 5 and 6, you may be pushed off the board, but that would have to be a pretty concerted effort, since already we're talking about the United States. And so if you've got them still, if you're fighting that cat and mouse game, with them, then you're fighting the cat and mouse game with them back and forth. You're going to be able to contain them, and that's a good thing. The same actually occurs along the coast. Anywhere along the coast is the equivalent of a fighter swarm, because what you have there is you have bombardments. So you want to stay off the coast. So for instance, we talk about these Russian troops. Well, what do we do with these Russian troops? Do we send them back to Moscow? No, I don't think you do. I think you wait until the Japanese have got another focus, whether it be Australia, I don't usually see that, but Calcutta, or cutting through China, and then you push in. But Manchuria is difficult because Manchuria is right next to the coast, and so you want to your occupation force in Manchuria is going to want to be small, because they can swarm you with airplanes and they can bombard you with ships. And so you want to keep your people, your main force, off of the coast, away from the fighters, and then play the cat and mouse. They take it, you take it back. They take it, you take it back. Let those fighters land, leave those Japanese soldiers exposed, and then you're able to capture forces. And the same will occur over here when I go into videos about the Germans. You want to put the Germans out of place with some useful things, like, for instance, instead of backing away from the coast in Russia, put yourself on the coast. Your soldiers, your infantry, a lot of troops, particularly maybe in eastern Poland, and center them so that it pulls those fighters toward you. That's in order to protect London early, very, very early in the game, before Russia's in the war. On the other hand, later on, when the fighters are focused on the Russians and they're swarming the Russians, that's where you want to draw them off. You want to give them a target out in the Atlantic in order, close up on the Atlantic, in order for to get these fighters, you're sort of controlling them by giving them targets of opportunity. Sounds odd, but distraction is a large part of being a magician, and it's a large part of the military and strategy. So you're giving them targets so that they can be distracted from what their main objectives are. Now, I know they've got a lot of troops, they've got a lot of planes, they've got a lot of forces, a lot more than you do. So you've got to be even more clever. But if you can pull this off a few times, give them opportunities where it looks like you're actually got your pants down, you've been caught with your pants down. Well, at that point in time, if you can trick them and show them that you tricked them, you can get into their head, into their brain, and all of a sudden they're rethinking every time that you maybe make a mistake. Is this a real mistake, or is this just him baiting and switching? So, all right. So that's my first strategy video on fighter swarms and trying to avoid fighter swarms. Never ever build up 8-10 guys to be attacked by 8-10 guys and 5 planes. That's a losing proposition. So we're going to talk about how to make that happen and how to defeat that cat and mouse, and stretch their supply lines, get them away from those fighters, get them off the coast, then defeat them. In general, that's my video for today. So I read a book about Patton called Killing Patton, and one of the things he says was be audacious, and that's one of the things I want to do as an Allied player is be audacious. Thank you for watching. Good night.